you're here because one of the things that I always bring in these conversations that I'm lucky to be able to have here with a live audience is the concept of community. And there is no one around this Lake Nona, a greater Orlando community, that doesn't know who you are. Everybody knows Glen, and because Glen is always everywhere. And if you ask people, who is Glen? Typically the word you're going to get is, well, Glen is a person who connects people.
Try to.
Tell us a little bit more about how you do that and how did you end up becoming a connector of people?
Well, the first thing you have to do for your community is you have to show up. You have to be there for people. This is a wonderful community, and there are people that show up here through our airport. They show up here from all over the world, really. They come through the airport. They either take a right turn to go to Disney out of the south side of the airport, or they take a left turn to come to Lake Nona. And one of the things I'm very proud of is I embrace the fact that Lake Nona, the Tavistock brand, has allowed us as an emerging technology industry to be innovators. In our living lab, Juan Santos is a wonderful host here in our MS2 lab to allow like-minded people to come together to build whatever they see fit with the innovations from all over the world. And by me being a connector, I can connect the dots between who I've met over the last 30 years of being here, of whatever that new special sauce might be from anywhere in the world. And I want to encourage people, bring your innovation here, bring your special sauce, bring your widget, whatever it might be, because we want to make sure you thrive and flourish here in Central Florida.
And we're going to get into a little bit more detail about that innovation and this hub that this area is becoming. But before we get there, before you became a connector, you were an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
Right now you're the co-founder and founder and CEO of Safe Rider. But before that, you had a couple of other businesses.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial story?
Back in 1995, I got my master's degree, and part of writing your master's degree thesis is you had to write a business plan. And back there, you're talking about, hey, 5-year projections, and I was developing facilities called CATS, Cheerleading Action Sports Training Schools, and I also own an event in Kentucky that was called the Cheerleading Championships of Kentucky. And I sold that back in 1998 when I realized, wow, I need to start spending more time in Central Florida, because I was doing the event industry. I was doing it in conjunction with ESPN. I was doing it with Disney. I was doing it with SeaWorld. I was doing it with the NBA, the Orlando Magic, and multiple other Magic endeavors that they were doing. Also other teams with the NBA. I was working with the Chicago Bulls. I was working with the Portland Trail Blazers at the time, all over. And by doing that, I realized I was traveling a whole lot. So I ended up doing another exit back in 2008 with a corporation brand called Infinity Brands and Spirit Cheer to Varsity Brands and ultimately ESPN. And that's when I decided I was going to make my home down here in Central Florida full time in 2008. And I didn't do anything for about a year until I started figuring out, wow, I could really do this in places like the Villages, Lake Mary, Avalon, and start helping people to build future city dreams.
And then after that, that's when you went and became a UCF student, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, I did.
And what did you study at UCF?
Basically, what we were working on at the time was with Dr. David Metcalf. I started working with multimodal systems, electrical vehicles, autonomous vehicles, started looking at infrastructure, started looking at legislation, became a lobbyist with the state, also with the U.S. DOT, up in Washington, back and forth a little bit, working with the bus industry, working with the National Limousine Association, and creating legislation for companies to flourish in the electric autonomous vehicle space.
What about that space caught your attention?
Well, I figured at the time I was working.
What year was that?
Well, back then it was right around the 2015 to 2018 time span. I was on the board of directors for the Limousine Association, the Motor Coach Association, and there was a little thing called Dieselgate back then. And I really didn't want to lobby for fossil fuel taxes anymore. I had a conversation with Daniel Webster, He was one of our state representatives up in Washington, D.C. At the time, I was in his office in D.C. I said, man, I just can't do this anymore. I really believe that the sustainability aspect and what we are doing for our health and the emissions, and we need to transition over to a electric solution or a safer solution. And I was working in the villages at the time, and I shook the Morris family's hand and said, thank you very much. I'm going to start going a different route. And we started working on electrification infrastructure. I started working with Tesla at the time. And I became a beta tester for some of the equipment they had with the Model S, the Model 3. They had some ADAS systems, which is assisted driving systems that which became safer, kind of like built a cocoon around these vehicles to make sure that whoever is the occupant or whoever is the operator could make sure that you could be safer, create stopping distances, getting less wrecks. And whoever's your occupant, whether if it's your spouse, your significant other, your grandchild, your child, could be safer in an environment that had less emissions.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, and of course that, eventually led to your passion for smart city development, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get there, you've highlighted a path, from being in Kentucky, doing events,
yes, sir,
to then doing a number of different things that are very different from events. Now we're talking about, getting a little bit away from the fossil fuel type of thing, and coming into more of a sustainable type of approach that allows you to meet a whole variety of people.
Absolutely.
That normally don't get to meet themselves.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you got one group of people over here, other groups of people out there, and then you have these people over here. And one of the things that I admire about you is how you get dissimilar people doing dissimilar things to actually talk to each other and to actually work together.
Absolutely.
How did that come about to be? Is that something that you just naturally have always done since you were in high school, or is that something that you developed over time as you started, dabbling with different things in different industries?
It's something that was definitely come together over a period of time. Because I actually have a little bit of neurodivergence in my life, I try to connect things kind of like Klingon chess. I kind of do it in my brain where things become more associated between different verticals or different spaces. And people do have a lot of similarities that I find when they become very passionate about something in their community. And by getting like-minded people that might be in different verticals to come together, we can be very powerful as a community, as a tribe. And our community here in Lake Nona has really become very diverse from multiple cultures. And when people want to build their businesses, I think that by being able to work with multiple verticals and capitalize on people's strengths, it builds the strength of our community, our like-mindedness, our tribe. People come here with their families. We had a family come here from Scottsdale, Arizona, and they showed up, man. Mm-hmm. And they came from all the way together here in the audience. And they came here with their whole tribe, man, just because they saw the value of Lake Nona, of our community. And they're a nutrition company. Vital Body has showed up here in our lab, and they are part of our functional health food system now here.
Oh, absolutely. But, and that's one of the many beautiful stories we have here in Lake Nona, in this particular building that, like you said, Juan Santos allows us to thrive in here. But let me go back to that point a minute, because if you go to corporate America, if you go to the average entrepreneur, whether they're from Silicon Valley or from wherever they may be, traditionally success, depending on how you define success, comes with focus on one thing, and then do that one thing really well.
Yes, sir.
And then take it to an ending point where we'll call it an exit, call it a handover, call it whatever, and then you move on to the next thing. That's not how you operate. You're not working on one thing. You're not even working in one industry.
No, sir.
You're working across the board, which seems to go against the grain from what traditionally we are taught, right?
Yeah.
And what traditionally we see highly successful people. I have a lot of respect for you. I see what you do. You're a successful man. How does that work? How do you have been able to figure out how to be successful while dabbling not only in many different things, but in dissimilar, non-related areas?
Yeah, I kind of call myself a man of many hats. In the back of the room right now, I've got multiple hats because I work with multiple companies and multiple verticals. But the one thing most people have in common from any culture, from any company, is they're strive to do good. You want to do good for your family. You want to do good for your community. You want to do good by your spouse, your significant other, your children, your grandchildren. You want to do good. And it doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. Do good is something that we can all holistically come together on. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or whatever. Mm-hmm. Doing good is something we can all come together on, and whatever hat you're wearing on any given day, you can do good by the way of that company or that business or that religion or that sector or that vertical in life. Do good.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is one of the things that I wanted to highlight about what I've seen you do. There is, we started the conversation about, the fact that you are a prolific connector of people and businesses. Sometimes you connect people that you just met. You have a meeting, you meet somebody, and before the meeting's over, you're taking that person and connecting them with anybody you think could benefit from that relationship, right?
Yes, sir.
But that's not where it ends for you, because like you said, you do this with the foresight of doing good. Right? And you also do it with the foresight of building and nourishing those relationships. Relationships are actually very important to you.
Very important.
Tell us a little bit more about that. We're at the age where, if I look at myself, I'm pretty different than when I was in my 20s. And
Absolutely.
My family can attest to that. So today you're this connector. You're a person who does good. You're a person who's passionate about technology, which we're going to get in a minute. But you're also passionate about relationships, right?
Yes, sir.
How did this all come about? Because that is the essence of who you are today, and it's leading you into new ventures, which we're also going to touch on later. But this triage of relationship, doing good, and connecting people, when did you start doing that, and why?
I can say it probably really began in 1995. It's a transformation, really, of life and relationships with people. You nurture that over a period of time. I have a grandmother-in-law that one of the most valuable lessons she ever taught me is not how to spend your time, but how to invest your time and to build those relationships with people. People, it doesn't matter what technology's out there, what AIs are out there, or where the next best widget's going to be. People are people, and they want to have that one-on-one or community relationship develop over a period of time. And that time builds trust. And trust is what relationships are founded in. And you have a real, true basis of community built on trust and relationships.
How does that... Let me throw something at you, and I'd like you to comment on it and see if it makes sense, okay, or if I'm in the right track. I mean, there is a stigma in business, right? And I'm a rookie entrepreneur. I tell people I'm a reformed corporate person, or I'm trying to reform from the corporate world. Yeah. And it has been a challenge. Yeah. The corporate world, you have a big safety net. Well, not anymore. I mean, companies are letting go people because of, different, things that are happening with the economy, or have been happening with the economy for the past several years. But when it comes to trust, you have found a way to start companies and then exit out of them, having that as the center of how you work, not just with the people that are working either for you or with you, but also with your clients.
Yes, sir.
Right? And this idea of doing good, this idea of being trustworthy, this idea of being a person that foments community, whether it is in the community, outside of the company, or within the culture of the company.
Yes, sir.
These are things that are pillars to you. But when you look at how society defines success, at least in the corporate world, a lot of companies talk about these things.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they don't necessarily live up to them. And, you're a CEO, a lot of CEOs out there, they just don't connect with their people the way you do, right? So how has that served you in your journey as an entrepreneur? Has it been challenging for you?
Absolutely.
Because you're a very open person.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
First off, I want to thank the people that I surround myself with. It's not a journey on my own. My wife has been a wonderful supporter. My morning coffee time with her and our dialogue that we start every day with is part of my support structure. Also, who I surround myself with, my mentors, some of my ex-business partners, we still are in great relationship with one another. And exits haven't always been for a monetary gain. I've traded exits for shareholdership. I've done exits where a company did come with some monetary, but it also came with an exit in mind that I was going to be able to mentor other companies along the way. And also, it comes with the idea that over a period of time, we're going to grow together. And as I've gotten older now, I've got a chance, my wife and I have a little saying now that we want to see our grandbabies have babies. And we want to do it in a place that we really love. And that just happens to be here in Central Florida. Being a part of the Orlando community, being a part of Orange County, I've been a part of Lake County, Seminole County, Volusia. But the Central Florida core is someplace that I call home. And who I do business with is who I surround myself with. And they're my mentors, they're my friends, and they're also my business colleagues.
And along the way, like you said, you stay in touch with some of these people.
Absolutely.
But there's also probably been setbacks and disappointments and betrayals. How do you manage that? Because I see you here almost every day, and you're such a giving and open person. So when someone takes advantage of that, right?
It's not all pixie dust and roses, Rafael.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
There's a saying in the movie Jerry Maguire that I've had far more failures than I've had successes. And that kind of rings true, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You fail fast and you fail forward, always. You're always learning, hopefully learning from your mistakes. And I have a young nephew, he says, "I not do that again." Mm-hmm. And so once you fail at something a certain way, you've not really failed 10,000 ways, you found 10,000 ways it didn't work. Mm-hmm. That's a Thomas Edison quote. And we try to live that way where the rubber meets the road. Literally, you have to be doing at all times. And we try to do good and be doing things at all times to move forward.
So let's add to this conversation. Let's talk about one of your passions, right? Yeah. You're passionate about innovation, specifically the stuff that we talk about when we're hanging out here is the smart cities and transportation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell us, why does that make you so passionate, and some of the things that you're doing in that space?
Last year, I was blessed by being honored by winning the Innovator of the Year award over the high-tech corridor, East Orlando area. But what I found through working with the Florida-Israeli partnership, I got to work with some wonderful people over in Israel. Dr. Glen was over there. We found that as you increase somebody's mobility, how they get around, you increase their quality of life. Mm-hmm. And by increasing their quality of life, their productivity gets better. Mm-hmm. Their financial situations get better. Mm-hmm. Their families tend to thrive. And it could be somebody that has just gotten their driver's license, or it could be somebody that's using a scooter. Or they're being able to be ambulatory because they're getting to be able to walk again. A stroke victim, somebody's experienced trauma. But mobility is at the core of how people increase their quality of life.
So, but that's beyond transportation. That also has to do with infrastructure, right?
Yes, sir.
Which is
Absolutely.
something you're also very familiar with. You know,
Yeah.
how to prepare the infrastructure so that that transportation that you're talking about can take place. What are some of the things that you've worked on in that space?
Well, legislation is one of the things that we've had to work on for infrastructure. Being able to develop things like charging infrastructure, specifically for electric vehicles. I had an opportunity to work with the Tesla team on superchargers. Mr. Estevez was very kind to work with me over a period of time. We've actually got superchargers implemented over by Denny's just north of the airport. Now, that took 5 years to do, but it started with the dream, you know, of being over there with some of my other collaborative partners. Joseph was very integral in that, and we sat there one day and had a Model S Tesla there, and we had a Escalade that was, you know, it was an EcoBoost type, and we were like, you know, one day we're going to be able to service this area with superchargers so people can come in, get a fast charge, get a bite to eat, and get right back out there with Uber or Lyft or Get Transferred or GroundLink or Black Lane and be able to service these people in an eco-friendly way with the infrastructure we helped to create. 5 years later, dream became a reality. It took a little while.